Super Mario Bros. Wonder is the 9th Nintendo game to get a Switch 2 edition, and the 7th if you exclude the two that launched at the same time as the Switch 1 versions of the games. In the past, I've pondered whether Nintendo Switch 2 editions still make sense to continue, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder was actually one of the few games that I thought still made sense to get a Switch 2 edition. And sure enough, here we are now. So I want to talk about it. Right off the bat though, I do want to say that I did not buy this for the multiplayer content, and I am not going to talk about it because I honestly have not had time to play with anyone in particular. I don't have a lot of friends with the Switch 2. So my focus here is entirely on the single player components, which Nintendo didn't talk about a ton. Obviously the multiplayer was the big focus for them, but that's what I cared about, and there is a good bit of it here. So let's get into it. First, I just want to touch on the graphics because that's one of the things that you expect with the Switch 2 edition, is just a graphics upgrade, mostly in resolution, maybe frame rate. And I'm sort of sorry to say that I don't see that upgrade here. That upgrade does exist, and people have made comparisons, and you can look very closely and you can see the differences in resolution because this game runs at 4K now, and that's awesome. But just playing the game, I could not tell a difference. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, it's just that this game already looks so crisp and clear on the Switch 1. Like, it's so sharp, it looks really good. And I honestly, just playing it back to back, switching between versions, I could not tell a single difference. I'm sorry about that. I feel like it's not a big enough upgrade in that sense. I think the only way they could have made it big is either add textures or actually do some new texture work, which would have been nice, but that doesn't seem like the case. It really is just a resolution upgrade. I think one missed opportunity, because something I mentioned in that previous video about Switch 2 editions is that I think it would make a lot of sense for this game to support 120 frames per second in handheld mode, and it doesn't, which is really weird to me. I don't understand. But yeah, no 120 frames per second support in this game at all. I think that would be an upgrade that would actually be really noticeable if they made it, and I'm surprised that they didn't, so that's kind of strange. So now, focusing on the single player content itself, there's two parts to this that I think I should talk about. So the first one is the Koopa Links, and the addition of the Koopa Links to this game is actually very welcome. I think we all got a little tired of the Koopa Links because of their repeated appearances in the new Super Mario Bros. Series, but here, I think their addition actually fixes the biggest problem with Super Mario Bros. Wonder originally, which was the lack of variety in the boss fights. It was always Bowser Jr., always with very similar mechanics. It just never evolved past the same sort of thing until the Bowser fight, and even the Bowser fight was kind of basic. So it was fine, but it was lacking in variety with the bosses. That was the game's biggest problem. And this update, this version, fixes that, because all of the Koopa Links have very unique, very interesting boss fights that make use of totally different concepts and even some whole new items, I think, for the game. I think in the trailer we got to see Wendy. I don't want to spoil all the fights, but you got to see Wendy in fish form, and it is an interesting fight. But all of the Koopa Links have very interesting transformations that are very different from each other, and probably some of the more unique and interesting boss fights in 2D Mario in a while, because the new Super Mario Bros. Series also wasn't that interesting. The problem with this part for me is that it seems to have been designed in a way that only makes sense if you're playing the game for the first time or from the beginning, because the way that these boss fights appear is that they're all in the game worlds, the game's worlds, throughout the game. And if you've beaten the game already completely, like I did, these just unlock, and it's all about just, you go to the menu, they progress the story a little bit, transport to the first world, fight Wendy there, go back to Bell Park, talk about the fight, and then you can just go straight back to World 2, fight the next Koopa Link, and so on and so forth. You just keep going. There's not really an interconnecting story. There is, there's, the Koopa Link stole the bell things, the flowers, but there's not a lot of context to anything. There's no build up to any of the boss fight stages. So it really feels a lot looser, and so it only really connects properly, I think, if you do play the game from the beginning and you get to unlock these things as you go, as you're making your way through the world. And I think that kind of, if you look at it, if you look at just that, and in just as this context, it's weird because this does fix the game's biggest flaw, and having these fights spread out through the game really addresses that. Like, now you have varied boss fights in every world, and that's a good thing. But also, now you're paying, if you're playing the game for the first time, you're probably buying it for the first time, and you're buying an $80 game, and that just feels a little crazy. Like, I don't know, because it's a game that costs $60 but now you're paying $80 for it, and for it to be as good as it should have been in the first place, in that sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but it is a little weird when you think about it that way. I do feel like it would have made more sense for the content of the DLC to be more contextualized within itself, rather than depend on you playing the game from the beginning. But there's another component to this Switch 2 edition that I think makes it more interesting, which is the Toad Brigade training camp. I think that's actually the biggest draw of this, and it's pretty cool. So much like the Koopalings, I think apparently some of these missions do get unlocked as you progress through the story. But here, it's actually fine if you've beaten the entire game and you can just go for it. There's 74 missions in total. I haven't done all of them yet. I'm close to the end though. And they're very interesting. Like, they put new twists on existing stages. They give you new challenges. A lot of them are time-based. You have to collect things quickly or defeat enemies quickly. Some of them have like weirder conditions where you have to avoid coins. Like, those are actually kind of hard because my brain, even though they add a visual to the game that tells you like coins are bad, it never fully registers. You're so used to collecting coins that I often still go for them, even though they make me lose immediately. So there's a lot of interesting challenges in the Toad Brigade training camp. I think it's pretty cool, and there's 74. If you consider all of those as individual stages, that's almost doubling the length of the game, if you just in terms of the gameplay itself. Obviously these are shorter, but like there's a good bit of content here. Some of those missions are basically just harder versions of each other, but still there's a good bit of variety here and a good bit of challenge too. So yeah, it's pretty good content, and I think in this case the lack of context isn't as much of a problem because there's so much of it and they're just missions, so like it makes sense. I think when you look at that and the Koopalings, it would have been cool if they have structured these things around each other. So you have the missions, and as you progress through the missions, that's how you hear reports on the Koopalings, and then you get to go and fight them in their respective levels. I think if you contextualize it in that way, so that there's a sort of build-up to each of the fights, I think that would have been way cooler, and that would have made this package feel a lot more worth it. It is really a structuring problem, I feel like. It could have felt way more worth it if they structured it a little different, because the way it is, it kind of feels like, the Koopalings are trying to fix the original game, and they do fix that, but at the same time, if you're playing the game from the beginning, this is now an $80 game that's kind of hard to justify. And as a $20 upgrade, it feels a little more disjointed. So yeah, I think they should have made this into a more cohesive experience between the Koopalings and the Toad Brigade thing. I think that would have worked better. But really, that's about it in terms of single player content. So as you play through either the Koopaling thing or the Toad Brigade, what you're going to do is you're going to get Bellabell water, and you can water these plants in the Bellabell Park. And as you do, you're going to receive flowers, and you actually receive greetings. So the greetings you can use in the online multiplayer, you'll receive a lot of them. It's actually kind of funny because they're all just emoji, like actual Unicode standard emoji. All of them are just based on existing emoji. And it's just funny to see Nintendo just do that, just use emoji in a game. It's funny, but it's cool. You get extra greetings, I guess. There's an extra little thing to it where you get band instruments. There's a little band in the Bellabell Park, and you get instruments from them from the flowers, and then they can actually play music. which is really just a credits screen for the DLC. But you know, that's cool. And then you can use other flowers. There's the last set of flowers that are actually just decorative, and you can just put them in different parts of the Bango Park to make it a little more unique. But yeah, that's about it in terms of like single player content in Mario Brothers Wonder Switch 2 edition. And it's okay, like I don't think you're getting ripped off. You're getting like 74 missions from the Toad Brigade thing, and then you have the Koopaling boss fights. I think, you know, there's probably enough there for $20 to kind of make it worth it. It's mostly a matter of it should have been contextualized better, but it's alright. But this does kind of feed into my idea that like Switch 2 editions don't make a lot of... That's just gonna keep happening, isn't it? As I was saying, this just kind of contributes to this idea that I don't think Switch 2 editions really make a lot of sense anymore. Like, all of them, like, they're okay, and in terms of like the technical upgrades, I think that's where most of the interest really is. Because whenever they do add content, like, there's been a couple that I think are okay, like this and Kirby in the Forgotten Land are cool upgrades. But it never really feels totally satisfying. And actually, like, while we're here, let's rank all the Switch 2 editions we've had so far. So at the bottom, we got Super Mario Party Jamboree Switch 2 edition. That upgrade was kind of garbage. Like, I don't have that game to begin with, and definitely not the upgrade, but everything I've heard, like, the new games that they've added are very have limited appeal, especially the ones with a camera. Not a lot of interest in that. It's $20, and they made this really stupid decision where they separate the Switch 2 edition and the Switch edition into like totally separate experiences, and like all of the modes in the Switch 1 edition, aside from the main Mario Party mode, I don't think they've been upgraded for the Switch 2 edition. So if you want to play some of the side modes in Mario Party Jamboree on the Switch 2, you still have to play them at the resolution of the Switch 1 edition, though they didn't get upgraded. It's so strange to me. Slightly above that, I will put Xenoblade Chronicles X. That one also kind of sucks. It gives you 60 frames per second, but again, from the reports we've seen, the quality of the graphics is actually significantly just bad. I'm not gonna say worse, but for some people it is. Like it looks very like not blurry, but like the edges and everything looks very pixelated. I think it's very weird. So it's for some people it's actually a negative upgrade. But I'll give that a little bit extra points because that one is only $5. So that's one of the cheapest Switch 2 editions Nintendo has done. And I feel like the problems it has are probably, because they're technical, I feel like Nintendo might fix that with an update. So I'll put that just slightly above the Mario Party Jamboree one. Then we have the I'll say Pokemon Legends EA first. That is a Switch 2 edition that obviously is better, it runs at a higher frame rate. But that's about it. It just feels like they use that as an excuse to like fix the game only on the Switch 2. Like, I mean, not that it runs terribly at 30 frames per second, but it shouldn't run that badly on the Switch 1 to begin with. So like, it's better for sure, but it's weird that we even have to pay for this. Then above that, I'll put Metroid Prime 4, which here the graphics difference is actually very big. Between the Switch 1 version and the Switch 2 edition, it looks way sharper, way cleaner. Textures, I think even polygons and everything looks way better in the Switch 2 version. There's HDR support, and there is 120 frames per second support if you want to play at a higher frame rate. And probably most important of all, there's mouse controls, which makes this game way better to play on the Switch 2. So this is a very good upgrade in my opinion. I think if you have a Switch 2 and you wanted to play Metroid Prime 4, the Switch 2 edition just makes all the sense in the world. And then very close to that, I'll put the Switch 2 editions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, because those are also pretty notable upgrades. They don't add anything in terms of controls, but the visual quality, the resolution is way higher. Not only do they now target frames per second, but they hold 60 frames per second now instead of 30. Like, there are a lot of parts in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom that couldn't really hit the 30 frame per second target. So now they target 60, and I believe they almost always stay at 60. so it's a way smoother experience. And they also added HDR support. And there's all the stuff with the Nintendo Switch app, which, you know, it's not huge, but I do like the voice memories. And I like that the map really helps you get 100% completion on everything. I had some fun doing that because I did try to get as close as possible by myself when I first played the games. But then having the Switch 2 edition really helped me clean up everything I missed. So that was also really cool. And I think another point in favor of this one is the fact that even though they cost $10, they're also included with the Switch Online subscription, the expansion pack subscription. So that really does make the value of that go a lot higher. So that's also nice. Then I don't know if I necessarily put this above it, but I think just in terms of value and what it represented, the Animal Crossing New Horizons Switch 2 edition is nice as well because it does come with notable performance improvements, specifically loading speed. Like the load times were terrible on the Switch 1 version after a while, so everything is way better now. They increased the number of players that can play together to 12 instead of 8. They added the megaphone, which whatever, but like it's only those little things, but the visual upgrade is noticeable. The performance upgrade is very noticeable from what I hear. And this is another one that's only $5. So I feel like it's a no-brainer. Like if you want to play Animal Crossing New Horizons again, which you probably do because they also released that free update that's for the Switch 1 version. But now you can have all that content and you can enjoy it way better for just $5 by buying the Switch 2 edition. So I think that makes it pretty good as well. Yeah, I'll put that near, maybe not necessarily above, but very close to the Zelda Switch 2 editions as well. And then the top two are going to be Kirby and the Forgotten Land and Mario Wonder, which I will put Mario Wonder in second place there. As I said, it's okay, there's interesting enough content. I think the context of it should have been a little bit better. But yeah, I'll put it in second place. And then I'll put Kirby and the Forgotten Land in first place because I think the content feels a little more integrated into the world, even though it's still not like super well contextualized, but there is like a bit of a story that connects what you're trying to do in the Forgotten Land, in the Shattered something, I forget the name of the Kirby the Kirby expansion, but there's a bit of more context to it, I guess. There's a bit more story to it. The levels are like fully fledged levels that have like been completely retooled. So like it's pretty cool stuff. And there's 12 of them. There's a new boss fight and there's a new boss rush mode, which the boss rush mode is I think a very big part of Kirby and the Forgotten Land to begin with. So I think having the new boss rush difficulty is actually really cool here. So yeah, I'll put that in first place. But even with this context, like even if I rank all of these and you see the ranking that I did, I feel like none of these ever really hits that spot where I can say like, oh yeah, this is totally worth it. It's like, I bought them and I don't regret buying them, but I never really come away fully satisfied for most of these. Like the smaller upgrades, obviously, like at that point, if you're talking $10, $5, I'm not going to argue the value there that much. But for the $20 editions that should be more significant and are, even the good ones, it's like there's not a sense of like full satisfaction with that experience. They're good, they're nice, and they're worth it. I would say they are worth it. But there's something missing, you know? I feel like for $20, you would expect something just a little bit meatier, and you're not really getting that. And at this point, I think Nintendo is running out of games that they can do this with, where they can add like small amounts of new content, things that are not huge, not super interesting, and charge $20 for it. I feel like they're not at a point now where they can keep doing that to more games. Like they've done that for all the games that they could at this point. I feel like there's nothing that they should really go back to and get the same treatment, because the DLC portion of this Switch 2 edition doesn't feel like the kind of content that you would expect from actual DLC. I feel like when Nintendo does DLC, it's usually a bit more meaty, and you're not really getting that with these Switch 2 editions. So it's probably time to stop them, or maybe only do like maybe the $5 upgrades. But then again, I don't know, a lot of those probably should be free upgrades. I don't know. I just don't see a lot of point at this point for Nintendo to do a lot of Switch 2 editions with their own games. I hope most of their focus is on making something that's completely new. Yeah, that's really about it. And for what it's worth, there was a podcast from Nate the Hate this week that actually details a lot of cool stuff coming throughout the rest of this year and maybe even into next year. So I'm very excited about that. Hopefully, I think Switch 2 editions will probably be something that Nintendo isn't going to do a whole lot more of going forward. I hope that's the case. I don't think they're adding a lot of value anymore. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you for watching. Sorry for the late video this week. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.